Hey everybody, and welcome back to my dream machine, and welcome back to a Kreative Kiwi Design. As you can see, eyeglass holders. My name is Sue and I'm from OML Embroidery, and we're gonna go through step by step how to make these eyeglass holders. Now I've picked some groovy Halloween fabric, and the instructions will give you everything you need, the sizes. Now it's suggested in the instructions that you use a really thin batting, which I'm showing you there. You can almost see through it, and that works really so much better. The first thing we're going to do is stitch out our placement line basically of the eyeglass case on water soluble stabilizer. Now it's pretty important to use the water soluble stabilizer because if you use tearaway, it's hard to get the tearaway away from the top of it where it has, pretty designs. So wash away makes it a whole lot easier, so I suggest everyone use it. Now this is pretty intense, so I'm going to suggest that you use the fabric type of wash away, and that so it'll hold up. The plastic one, I don't think it would cut it. I didn't try it, but that's my guess because it's pretty intense. All right, so I'm tidying up a little bit. We have the first thing down is the batting, and put it down. It's all cut to size. You can pre-cut everything, and the next step is going to stitch it down just to hold it in place. Now once you have the thin batting down, this is when we're going to start piecing it together, and it's really cute. So the sewing down of the batting is also giving you your templates of where you are going to put the pieces. Now this is crazy quilting, which gives a brilliant effect. You don't have to do the crazy quilting though. You can put one piece of fabric down. It also looks good. So here I am, I'm just placing it down, and make sure, this is going face up, but make sure it covers all the lines. Now there's a certain order it's going to go into, so that's the first piece. Now the second piece is, and you have to follow the instructions, the second piece right there. Now in retrospect, I'm using charm squares, and in retrospect, it's not quite big enough. The one that I'm putting down right now, not quite big enough. It would be a little bit easier if you had a bigger piece. I had a little bit of trouble, pointing it down, putting it down properly so it covered everything. So I would use a bigger piece. Now, as I put it down, I made a little mistake on it, and I left the mistake in the video. Because, it's always good to see mistakes and see how you can fix them. So you can't see the mistake yet, but when I flip it over, you can really tell what it is. It's just a tiny bit off. I know it looks good, but it's just a tiny bit off. Now, of course, this is all my fault, not Kreative Kiwi Patterns. I should have done it a little bit better. I had done a couple of them with charm squares and I didn't have any problems, but apparently I just couldn't put this one down properly. So I'm kind of fiddling with it, is it gonna work? I'm not really sure. And it's just off a little bit, and instead of starting all over again, which would have been the best idea in this part, I kind of fiddled with it to see if I could make it work, and there's nothing wrong with experimenting. Now, the mistake I made gets fixed up basically at the end, and you really can't tell that it's a mistake. So sometimes it's okay to keep going and carry on and see what you can do, but in retrospect, I should have, kind of done a little bit better there. So, all right, now stitch it down. Now I'm trying to hold it, and you don't have to do this. I don't recommend actually that you put your hands anywhere near the machine. I got it all down. It's just still not quite right. I like perfection. but I was pretty happy about that. So that step is going to stitch everything down so it's nice and solid. And if you look to the orange fabric that I just put on, it's kind of got a little bump in it, and that causes, you know, a little bit of an issue. It's not perfect. So just simply make sure you use bigger fabric. So we did part 1 of the crazy quilting, part 2, and now we're going to do the last part. And in the instructions there's a little chart so you know where you're placing it. So again, this one is same as number 2. It is face down. Make sure, now that's smaller so the charm square is going to work, but make sure it covers everything. Don't try to use take a shortcut and use a scrap that's too small. This one works out just fine, just at the edge there, so make sure your placement's better than what I did. It still looks good though, and I absolutely love the fabric. I think the fabric kind of makes the whole thing. So now flip it over, finger press. You could take the hoop out of the machine, and if you had a little mini iron you could do that. So now this step is going to stitch everything down on the front of the case and hold everything nicely so we can get to the decoration of it. So just be careful that your foot doesn't get caught on anything. And now we're ready for the fancy stitches, the first set of fancy stitches. And now you can skip these if you want to, but the first of the fancy stitches they're quilting stitches, which really gives it a nice effect. Now I kept the same thread throughout this because that's the look that I wanted, but you can do the quilting to match the material or starkly contrast it and it'll look fantastic. I'd also like to point out that I have the same colored bobbin in my machine, so I don't forget to change it when you're doing the end piece. I'll remind you guys when it comes up, and it is in the instructions. Traditionally in crazy quilting, you would change the thread for the quilting part and also for the decorative stitches. And it kind of gives it a different effect and it looks really good. You could use golds. Traditionally, they used fancy colors. I thought for my Halloween one that it would be better to, you know, keep it all one color. Now, if you look at the orange fabric on top, you can see I have that little bubble there. And that's the mistake I made. It is nothing to do with Kreative Kiwi, but you'll find that it sorts itself out. I kind of thought it would because I had looked at the patterns and I know when it does the decorative stitches, it's going to push it down. Now, I noticed the mistake, but nobody else did, and that's fine. That's absolutely fine. Kreative Kiwi's work is foolproof, so it makes it a lot easier if you make a boo-boo. I wouldn't call this a mistake, actually. I would just literally call it a boo-boo. It's not 100% perfect, but only I can tell. Okay, let's speed up the playback a bit. We're going to do the third quilting stitch, and then we're going to do the fancy stitch, and I will come back. And now the next step is we're going to trim everything up, and especially the top part of it, before we add our inner lining. Now, when you place down your inner lining, you want to slip it under the hoop and have it face down. So the wrong side of the fabric is going to be up facing you. Now, because we're using water-soluble stabilizer and we've trimmed everything, you can actually see through it and make sure your placement is done properly. Now, once you have it right, and you can see here that I do have it right, just tack it down. Once you've trimmed the backing, you put the hoop back on, and now we're going to do some really fancy stitches. This is looking fantastic so far, and we're almost done. I'm going to make a quilt sandwich with the fabric and cut it to size. So it's one piece of fabric, the thin batting in the middle, and then another piece of fabric on top. And again, slide it under, and you can see to make sure it's going to fit or not. So make sure your top fabric is facing up and the bottom fabric has to be facing down. This is going to form the back part of our glasses case. So once this is stitched down, we're almost done. You need to take the hoop out of the machine and trim the back. Now make sure you have really sharp scissors going on because we are cutting through a lot of layers. It's fabric, batting, and another layer of fabric. Once you're done that, carefully cutting it out, so everything should be cut out at this point, then you can put the hoop back into the machine and we're going to do our final decorative stitches. Once it's finished, you can take it out of the hoop and trim the water-soluble stabilizer, kind of close to it. You don't want to leave a whole bunch, but you don't want to snip those satin stitches either. And then carefully trim out the top of the pocket, and this will open it up. Then all you have to do is take a little bit of water on a Q-tip or, a little bowl and dip your finger in and get rid of the rest of the water-soluble stabilizer. And it's done, and it's awesome. So experiment with different fabrics, do different things with it, try different thread colors, and you will end up with a really, really super cute looking glasses case that also fits cell phones, by the way. Dawn is using this one for a cell phone. I'm pointing out there that I don't like my little mistake, but she can't really see it. So thanks everyone for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.